Hello, welcome to Dissident Canada. My name is Tyler, and well, Trump has made massive cock ups in the last week. One, continuing to play along that he wants to attack Iran in any shape or form. Massive misstep. Plain and simple. You don't get on board with the Israeli strikes that killed the negotiator who was going to continue negotiations on this past Sunday with the United States negotiating team, where they were at the position where they were actually getting into details, actual, you know, hammering out of a deal. Because that has now created, well, that in conjunction with the week before, right? Maybe 2 weeks before, the Ukrainian attack on Russia that did hit strategic nuclear bombers that are really not that important to Russian military doctrine, but are very scary to the British because they are within striking distance of London. Those weren't so much of a problem. I mean, even though, they're out in the open because of nuclear treaties, bad faith there to attack those. Sets a bad precedent for nuclear non-proliferation and nuclear treaties that still have to be renegotiated because I believe it's next year or the year after. At least one treaty is the time limit expires. No. What the Russians were really pissed about, and specifically Putin, really pissed, was the fact that, again, the day before negotiations, a Ukrainian-backed terrorist attack happens on a civilian train. That sets bad precedent. And Trump comes out and said, made the statement, they should have made a deal. Same with what happened in Iran. They were heading to the negotiation table. This is not what you call peace through strength. This is short-term peace through fucking stupidity. Why? Because this puts you in a position where everybody generally doesn't want to go to war, all right? Except for the neocons. Trump himself wants peace. Most of his administration wants peace. There are still a few war hawks in there, war whores as well, deep staters that do want war, but for the most part, want peace. Russia very much wants peace. There is a problem of sustaining itself in this pseudo-war footing that it has. Deals were going to be made. Now, you're at the point where the other side, while maybe a bad faith actor in the specific case of Iran, you can't make a lasting peace with them. You may be able to get peace with them. Don't get me wrong. Problem is, if you don't keep your boot on their neck when you're not looking, there won't be peace. Because you got peace at the end of a barrel of a gun. Every time that has happened, you get some other consequence that is much worse. If you don't believe me, World War I, peace was achieved at the end of a barrel. What happened a couple decades later? Wasn't good, and the fallout from that ended at the end of a gun. What happened again? And there's more situations just like that inside of the 20th century, okay? I am completely disregarding the last 25 years of complete fuck-ups of negotiations by the end of a barrel. Okay? So, in doing this, Israel and Trump, because, Trump's not saying, what the fuck, I wasn't on board with this, even if he was lying, it at least covers his ass a little bit. They're in this escalation escalator where there is an off ramp, okay? It's very difficult to get there, but you can get off. All right? If you're on an escalator and you're determined, you can get to the bottom rather than the top if it's going up. All right? But it's very difficult, especially when you have, in the case of Trump, had a meeting, I believe, last week or the week before at Camp David, apparently about this situation, where the likes of Tulsi Gabbard was kept away from the meeting because she's one of the few sane people in the room. So, you've got that problem, and now Mark Levin, as of recording this, has come out and said he wants regime change. Obviously, that was the whole point of this, is trying to get regime change, which the people who want regime change aren't thinking past their noses, because what's the history of regime change in the Middle East? Has it ever worked out? I'm not aware of it working out. Not well. Like, that's one aspect of it, okay? But you have multiple other aspects of this situation, all right? Like, the reason why you're getting a lot of people coming out and being like, yeah, war with Iran, or attacking Iran is okay, is because it's Iran. Everybody in the world agrees that they are a bad faith actor, they are an evil totalitarian regime, that no country on earth wants to see a religious totalitarian regime with nuclear weapons. No fucking duh. It's really easy to drum up support. And that's why it's so easy to get sucked into the war hysteria. But if we look at the situation in the region, all right? Let's say, well, first things first, we got to ask ourselves, what happens if the Ayatollah Khamenei, something like that, dies? Okay? What happens then? All right? The Iranian people may not like him, but they sure as shit don't like the idea of their leader being just assassinated, without their consent or their doing so. If you don't believe me on that situation, go look through every regime change operation in the last 80 years. That's how it plays out. But this goes farther than that. The Ayatollah and the mullahs are, to the, I believe it's the Shia sect of Islam, they are basically the Pope and the cardinals. It's the equivalent. What happens if they die to all the Shia that live outside of Iran, who are very much, maybe not in favor of this Ayatollah? But what happens, when he dies? How do they react? Nobody's given thought to that I've seen. Okay? And we have known, like, if I'm just talking here from the Canadian perspective, we have known terrorists, not just of Sikh origin, but of Islamic origin as well, domestically in Canada with Canadian papers. Tell me getting involved in another war is a great fucking idea. Now, obviously, this isn't America, and America's making the shots, but this is going to affect Europe with the mass immigration. It's going to affect parts of Russia that have an Islamic population. It's going to affect parts of China that have an Islamic population. It's going to affect everywhere that has an Islamic population that is either Sunni or Shia. Oh, maybe it's the Sunnis. Oh, God, I don't know. I forget. Sorry if I cocked that up, all right? It's just, I know I have two choices with Islam, and I can never keep them straight. But besides that point, all right, severe problem, all right? You start bombing the crap out of the country, you're going to have destabilization no matter what. There's no such thing in reality as a Thursday war, which is, started on Thursday, basically done by Monday, is the objective of a Thursday war. It's never really turned out that way. There's a few examples you can say. What is it? The invasion of Nicaragua. Yeah, sure. Different scenario. Very different scenario. But you're going to destabilize Iran. Well, what happened when you destabilized Iraq? The entire region lit up. Okay? Look at the regional players. India and Pakistan have a heavily vested interest because of their domestic populations and their proximity to this bullshit, to what goes on. Okay? You have Turkey with Erdogan, who clearly wants to rebuild a caliphate and rebuild at least part of the Ottoman Empire, if not expand it to, sizes yet unseen. And he also happens to be one of the luckiest motherfucking politicians on earth. How many times in just the last 5 years has Erdogan himself been on the outs of his country and somehow rolled, anywhere between an 18 and a nat 20 and just skated by through luck and continues to be in power? That man is probably the luckiest politician on earth. All right? Okay, you've got Egypt having a vested interest, and they have a quite large army as well. The Saudis have an interest, and they have a fuck ton of money. The Qataris or Qatarites, however the fuck you want to say that country's name, they have a vested interest. They have a shit ton of money. Like, this is the Middle East. The one thing that there's not short of is oil money, or just fossil fuel money, if you want to say hydrocarbon money. Okay. They can do a lot of damage with that money in trying to keep the area in check. Okay, what about parts of North Africa? I know I mentioned just Egypt, but generally North Africa, there's a Muslim population there. This is not going to be contained, all right? So, as of I'm recording this, I just got, because I'm on Seymour Hersh's newsletter on Substack, he's gotten word. Well, first I should explain who Seymour Hersh is. Seymour Hersh is the reporter for like the last 30 years that when someone in the deep state wants to go brag, and he's got contacts in basically every deep state. The Pakistani deep state's talking to him. The English deep state's talking to him. The American deep state's talking to him. If someone in a deep state wants to brag and get the word out that they're winning, they go to Seymour Hersh and he releases the paper and releases the information as they said it. He does journalism. He's a deep state hack because he's just a propaganda piece, but he repeats what they say and informs it in a narrative structure that makes sense. Go read his article on what happened with Osama bin Laden. Very interesting of what happened. Also, go listen to his take on what happened to Nord Stream. Very interesting as well. He says that the deep state is in position and ready to strike as early as this weekend. Don't know. Trump's come out because the Wall Street Journal, which is also another arm of the deep state, has said, yeah, Trump's saying we can strike within 2 weeks. Trump released a statement saying the Washington Journal doesn't know what the fuck they're talking about. They have no idea what my plans are for Iran. So who knows there? Bannon was spotted like a couple hours from me earlier, going to the White House, presumably to meet with Trump to give him his opinion. He is a trusted ally. He is a voice of sanity in this situation. And I think even if Trump doesn't get involved, the, say, 20% or so that Richard Bears this week on What Are the Odds on Monday with Robert Barnes was speaking about, that will be that Trump will not be able to win in the midterms if he does something in the Middle East. I think they're already gone from his coalition. All right? Because before he could get any legislation really passed, there's been a few things, but nothing bad. Like, he couldn't get the Doge cuts into law. He couldn't get the big beautiful bill, which it's a mixed bag. There are some very nice provisions in there. I'm specifically thinking about the removal of the tax stamps for short-barreled rifles, short-barreled shotguns, and suppressors. That is a neutering of the NFA, which is fantastic. There's some other things in there that can do good, can do bad. It's really a mixed bag. Before he can even get that passed, he's already engaged himself in Middle Eastern conflict. I think that damage is done. It's not, say, permanent. Trump could, get some stuff packed. If everything in the Middle East goes good, I still don't think he wins the midterm, because the likelihood of him, with the Congress the way it is and the Senate the way it is, and his unwillingness to completely go full steam ahead, war with the deep state, which is what he needs to do, he's going to have a hard time in the midterms, which means he's a lame duck president. He can come in and bam, he can pass executive orders, but without the House or the Senate, he's fucked. He's just gonna sit there and maybe he gets stuff done, but probably not. And he put this all at risk, because the neocons came to him and said, and it looks like, at least Robert Barnes's interpretation, which the man has enough contacts close to the president and has a high degree of understanding of the president and his advisory panel and the people around him, that his take is probably right, that he got sold another lie that presidents always get sold with big stupid wars or dumb decisions like COVID. Hey, look, this can solve all your problems. All we gotta do is this quick thing. It'll be quick in and out. No problem. Never that simple. And, it's probably because most people have blinders on when it comes to Iran, when it comes to thinking objectively. It's like, I get it. Like, you've got evil bastards there who have, 60% enriched uranium, which is, it's close to weapons grade uranium. It's not exactly there. You can still do some evil shit with it without it being weapons grade. Don't get me wrong. But they don't have the other half of a nuclear program yet, and they were coming to the fucking negotiating table. Even if, all right, there's no U.S. involvement and there's no escalation whatsoever past this point, and Trump gets a deal, all right? Obviously, that deal's not going to last, but he gets that. The damage with at least 20% of his base, it's done. He's moved. For like the last week, I've been watching commentators who actually, know where to look for military assets moving, and there's been a lot of military assets moving into an area. Now, could that just be a pressuring campaign? Absolutely. It's ridiculous what's going on. And again, this is an escalation escalator no matter what happens. At a certain point, you're signing up for the use of force by doing it this way. Like, objectively, I'm at the point where I think Scott Bessent and Trump have no fucking clue how the Eurodollar system works. Because if you went at Iran, okay, and you renegotiated all those, what are they called, sanctions, and there's like special exemptions for certain countries in which, oh, you can actually buy Iranian oil and we won't sanction you and whatever. You rip all those exemptions out and you say anybody who fucking does business with Iran, your access to U.S. government bonds is cut off. Any business or country, entirely cut off, null and void. You would have the financial sector of each country saying, holy fuck, we're not doing business with Iran. You cannot do a business with Iran, to their leadership, to their government. Like, the U.S. bond market is that important. And if you don't believe me, go look at some of my previous videos on it. Like, or go listen and watch Brent Johnson, Jeff Snyder, George Gammon. They all understand that if you really cut off treasuries, countries die in the current system of the Eurodollar network. So, like, even if, all right, and there's good likelihood that there's really no escalation here. I'm not going to be completely black-pilled on what's supposed to be a white pill Friday. Bannon's there. J.D. Vance is saying, hey, look, trust the president. He understands your concerns. He's heard you. He's earned some trust. I would argue the way Trump played COVID, no, he fucking hasn't earned any trust because he hasn't learned the lesson of COVID, which specifically with Operation Warp Speed, all right? We can argue about the effectiveness and safety of normal vaccines under normal circumstances, but Operation Warp Speed specifically said a safe, effective vaccine, all right? This was before they changed the definition to stop and prevent COVID-19, all right? And there's a whole, like, the entire legal document is exquisitely written. You should go look into the Brooke Jackson legal case against Pfizer on behalf of the people of the United States, and you can find the legal document. It's a great legal document. The problem is, it's not the deliverables, it's the people reporting to Trump on the deliverables lied their asses off to him. We saw the same thing in his first term before COVID-19 with Syria. When he wanted to pull out troops of Syria, they lied to him, which ultimately led to the deaths of U.S. military personnel. One of them being the wife of Joe Kent, who I think he's in administration now. I forget where he is, but I'm pretty sure either Hegseth or the Pentagon, I think it's their own press secretary, which I think is Sean Parnell. They snatched him up and he's somewhere and he's doing something. But the neocons are surrounding Trump, and it's a fuck up. On the bright side, though, I will say this. The only part of Trump's administration that is going right is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Here's the little white pill in this video before I end this, all right? And leave you for the weekend. Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s war on chronic diseases caused by chemicals and other such nonsense that are in your food and medicine that you're supposed to take is working. I was like, the entire week, there was like company after company saying, oh, hey, we're taking this toxic shit out of everything we sell in the next year. And it's like, okay, sure, that's slow rolling. They're giving themselves a year, but you're talking about retooling entire processes. I understand it can't happen overnight. So, like, if this is happening in America, it is going to roll over to other markets as well, because America is the biggest market. If you're, like, if you think of Lay's chips, all right, the standard production of Lay's chips before you get to, flavoring, that's basically all the same. It's the same steps and processes until you get to the flavoring, and then the flavorings are uniquely different for certain regions. Ranch in North America is ranch. In like Europe, it's called Cool American. You get over to Asia and you get like to the North American palate, weird fucking spice blends. But it takes time to retool all that stuff, and because America is the largest market, if a company is selling, say, to Canada and America, well, the production is the exact same, different places. Like, Canada's not going to be left out because for the most part it's the same production lines. So they're going to swap the equipment. So it's good. It's coming to the world. It's fantastic. It is a beautiful news. We've also got the Vaccine Advisory Board or whatever has got some real dope people on it. So like, there's good stuff. It's just, for me, what was on my mind is this colossal cock up. Like, with foreign policy, when it comes to an administration, doesn't matter who it is, there is no net positive. You only at best come out slightly behind or neutral. Even if Trump, all right, gets the most banger roles of creating peace in the Middle East, all right, with where gas prices are right now and the likelihood that they'll sustain at this price level for a little bit, like, we're talking $10 before the strikes happened and $15 or so before news started most likely to leak out as at time of recording. So, like, it's almost $16 higher per barrel of oil. That's ridiculous. And again, this is not just localized to Iran. You have to think about all the regional players. They all have a say in what goes wrong and what goes right. Like, if something goes wrong, they're going to want to get in on this. They have a vested interest. It's their region, it's their backyard. Like, what the fuck do you think the Syrians do? That place is a goddamn shithole now because of the regime change operation. Do you think they're not going to fucking want to expand, backed by Erdogan? And whatever, you don't think the parts of the Taliban or the ISIS-K that's in Afghanistan that fucking hates the Iranians, they're not going to want to get in on this with their U.S. military equipment that they now have and start doing some shit? Like, you're going to have chaos in the region like there's no tomorrow. Especially if the Iranians come hat in hand to the deal and they look weak. It's just a massive cock-up. Trump fucked up. There was no reason to potentially give the Israelis a green light. And there was no good reason to come out afterward and saying, nah, you should have made a deal. Nuclear Iran can't have nuclear weapons, especially on the eve of negotiations. You know, back-to-back negotiations, too. Credibility is torched. Anyways, that's the video for today. See you on Monday with something. I've got a whole list of shit, and there'll probably be more shit because it's Thursday for me. Day before more news is going to drop, and I expect more bullshit to happen on the weekend. I hope y'all have a great weekend. Hope nothing gets out of control. Hopefully, cooler heads and cooler voices prevail. Hopefully, the off-ramp that Putin has offered is taken, because that would be really smart. Anyways, see you in the next one.